Probably you can guess that Swami C is not well today. He's been suffering from flu for the past week or so, as are many of our devotees. So I will be filling in this morning. And I will speak on the topic, Leela Dhyana, meditation on the divine sport. Some of you have heard this before, and maybe even read it. I wrote an article on this. In fact, that was the reason for this topic many years ago, probably 15 years something, that I was asked to write an article on Leela Chintana, reflection on the divine play. And I thought about it, and I wrote back and said, can I change it a little bit to Leela Dhyana, meditation on the divine play? And then I thought, let me combine them. So, because they're very similar topics. Leela generally refers to this divine play of incarnation, it's an avatar. And it's a very nice spiritual practice to let the mind dwell on this play, the sport of God in human form, and to have that as a subject of meditation. So this will be the topic this morning. And I'll start out with a little discussion about the main elements in this particular topic. That is, what do we mean by Leela? And then a little meditation and contemplation. This term Leela is something that Sri Ramakrishna uses very often. When we read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he talks about Leela and Nitya. In the English translation, very often, this will be the relative and the absolute. The relative and absolute, this is from a very philosophical point of view. From a devotional point of view, it's more than the relative. It's God sporting in human form. And there's a certain element to this of play. It's somewhere in between this idea of Maya, where this world is a dream or an illusion, and this idea that no, this world is very real. It's real, but it is the play of God. So it has a kind of an in-between status, we can say. So this idea of Leela, it means a pastime, a sport, a play. It has the idea of a diversion or some type of amusement. It's not amusing for us all of the time. Yeah? But from the very high point of view and the devotional point of view, it's like a prescripted play. You know, but Girish Ghosh, the great dramatist, he wrote these beautiful plays, but he would always or often have himself as a starring role or one of the roles in the play. They say it was Alfred Hitchcock. Did you know that? That almost all of his movies, you can find him in it. It may just be a tiny little thing, but so that means the author of the play is also showing up in the play. So that's the idea of this Leela, that this is all the play of the Lord, but the Lord himself will come and be one of the special actors. The Vedantic point of view is that the Lord is the actor within all of us, but from a special point of view, that we'll see this avatar comes that way. So we have this idea, one idea, play or sport or pastime, diversion or amusement. Then Leela has this idea of something simple, something that can be done like child's play, that doesn't involve too much hard effort. So we have this term, Leelaya, in Sanskrit, this term Leelaya, something that can be done almost spontaneously. Then, as I say, something that's not entirely real, more of an appearance or a semblance, a pretense, disguise, even a sham, so that we're meant to believe that there's all something very, very serious, but there's a level from which we can look at this and see that it can be enjoyed the way we enjoy a movie. We don't get too upset because we know what we're seeing in the movie is not 100% real. Now, of course, there's a danger to all of this. We don't want to get hardened to the suffering of other people and everything, but there's a level in which we can try to understand this. So this term is used in all of these different types of contexts, and we get the feeling, though, that this concept of God in this divine play is that God is not simply dwelling in some transcendent region, that some heaven somewhere, or simply the formless aspect, but that God can come in human form. And as I say, the Vedantic point of view is that God is dwelling within each and every one of us, as the real higher self, or as the indwelling presence, as the Antaryaman, as the indweller, as the witness. We have all different ways of trying to understand this, but this gives us that feeling that God is not simply transcendent, but immanent, that God dwells within the hearts of all of us. So Sri Ramakrishna was very fond of this idea of Leela, and when he said Leela Nitya, this is that infinite transcendent element, the eternal element, Nitya, and then Leela will be that same absolute reality manifest in everyday life, so that we can get the feeling that divinity is not something far off, but is here right with us day and night within the hearts of each and every one of us, and we can see God dwelling within all beings, and at the same time special manifestation with the avatar, and we'll see that the special meaning will be there also. Sri Ramakrishna had two different incidents in his life where he fell down and hurt himself. One, when we see his photo, or you see the statue, he has a little chip in his front tooth. That's because he went into ecstasy one day and fell down and chipped his tooth. Then he had a broken arm, that he was walking along near the embankment of the Ganges, there's a railing there, and he went into an ecstatic mood. And he had this vision of Jagannath in Puri, and he wanted to embrace the image, and went forward and fell down and broke his arm. A very painful thing for him. And later he said that both of these incidents he felt were a sign from the Divine Mother, that his focus shouldn't be on this transcendental realm, but something more tangible. And he said, this is from the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, from February 24th, 1884. He said to M, and was the recorder of the Gospel, "Since my arm was injured, a deep change has come over me. I now delight only in the Nara Leela." That means the human manifestation of God. Then he says Nitya and Leela. The Nitya is the indivisible Satchidananda, the absolute reality, and the Leela, or sport, takes various forms. So this Leela will refer to several different things. He says, such as the Leela of God, that'll be the transcendent element, the Leela as the deities, the Leela as man, and the Leela as the universe. Vaishnav Charan was a very close devotee and friend also of Sri Ramakrishna. He belonged to this Karta Bhaja sect. The Karta means guru. So they like to think of God, to worship God in human form as the guru. So he says, Vaishnav Charan used to say that one has attained perfect knowledge if one believes in God sporting as man. I wouldn't admit it then, but now I realize that he was right. It is God alone who was sporting as man. So this Nara Leela, this is really what we're talking about here, will have these two sides to it. And Sri Ramakrishna liked both of them, that he saw God dwelling in each and every human form, and yet he also saw the special manifestation in the avatar. So these are the different ways that this formless infinite reality sports in the world, Leela, as the personal God, as all the gods and goddesses, all the different deities. This visible universe, Sri Ramakrishna used to say, this is also a manifestation of God. The universe itself, Virat, this is also a manifestation of God, so that also is a type of Leela, and as all living beings. So he saw everything as a kind of play, not real in any absolute sense, not explainable in any rational way. This concept of Leela is also almost an alternate creation theory. There's why and how did this universe come into being? We have all different theories in Vedanta, and none of them are very satisfying. They all have flaws, and they all make us scratch our head a little bit. That is, this universe, is it something real? And was it created? Was it created out of nothing? Was there something here before? Is it beginningless? Is it endless? Is it simply an illusion? We have all different ways of explaining it. This Leela theory says that, and the other question is, if suppose God is the creator of the universe, then why would God create a universe? And certainly such a strange one. And what need does God have to create? Is there any lack in God? Does God have any desire? So all of these questions come up. So this one way of answering it is the sweet will of the mother. It's not really an answer. None of them are really answers. There are different ways that we can try to understand something which Sri Ramakrishna says really is impossible to understand. We can't really know why and how this universe comes into existence, what the reason for it is beyond the ability of the mind. But this is one way of saying, okay, I don't understand it, but the Divine Mother herself somehow is responsible, so we say, just for fun. We read in the Taittiriya Upanishad that Brahman was sitting down and got bored one day. It doesn't say exactly bored, but he looked around and there was nobody else there. He was all by himself. Now, Brahman can't be sitting down and can't be looking around, so it's allegory, right? We don't take it too literally. But that Brahman thought, okay, let me be many, Bahusyam. Let me manifest as the whole universe. I can enter into everybody, and then I can play. I can let this dream start. I'm tired of just sleeping without any dream. Let this dream start. So this is that idea, and it explains in a way that's no explanation. Maya also explains in a way that's no explanation. We say the universe, Brahman alone is real, but because of Maya, this universe, the one appears as the many. It's not really an explanation. And then we say, well, how do we explain Maya? Maya is inscrutable. We can't explain Maya. We can only make it disappear. So the point is that we can choose any of these different ways of looking at the universe, or we can simply say it's a mystery and then drop it. We don't know. I sometimes think how foolish it is for people to think that we can possibly know why and how this universe came into existence. People ask us sometimes, how does this universe come into existence? So, as if they're asking, how does the toaster work? How can we possibly answer a question like that? Anyhow, so we come up with this, okay, Leela is God's play. So this is one of the types of answers that we have. Somewhere between material creation as real and somewhere between illusion as it's simply a dream. So we get it not entirely real, but also not entirely unreal, but not to be taken too seriously because it's going to come to an end. That's why it's contrasted to nitya, that no matter how troublesome and difficult this lifetime seems to be, it'll come to an end. We can look back on a whole lifetime and say, yes, it was really like a long dream. Not literally, but it seems like a long dream at the end of life. Now, this Nada Leela, I was saying that there are two different types of this, that one is from this non-dualistic, Advaitic point of view, that God dwells in the hearts of each and every human being. That God is sporting as human beings, sporting as man, sporting as woman. Sometimes Sri Ramakrishna would say that I see within each man Rama alone exists, within each woman Sita alone exists. Sometimes he would say I see the Divine Mother alone is dwelling within all beings. So this is one idea, that Brahman projects this universe and then enters into the heart of each and every human being as the real self. So we're seeing nothing but God. We see other people as nothing but God. Sri Ramakrishna had this vision almost constantly towards the end of his life, when he was in Kashipur Garden House, and suffering from the terrible throat cancer, tremendous pain, tremendously painful. He could make his mind rise above the pain from time to time, otherwise a very painful thing. But he was always in this state of bliss and joy because he felt everywhere he looked he saw God. And every person he looked at, he saw it was a manifestation of divinity. I always like this one incident. I refer to it very often, that all the devotees were sitting there, and Latu, who was later Swami Atmajnanananda, who was the servant boy, the orphan boy who became a monk, he was sitting there like this. And Sri Ramakrishna pointed to him, and he said, "You see, Latu is sitting there with his chin on his hand like this. I see Ram alone is sitting there with his chin like this." And he used to say, "Tumi jano or nai jano, tumi Ram." Whether you know it or not, he would say to the devotees, whether you know it or not, you are God. God meant not that I am God, but God is really dwelling within, disguised as me, and has forgotten it so that I think I'm me and I don't know anything else. Just as in a dream, we forget that we're really the dreamer. We only know ourselves as the player, as the actor in the dream. So this is from that philosophical point of view. God alone has taken the form of all living beings. He's forgotten himself in this drama. He's in the play. He's playing all of the parts, and is such a good actor that he's so identified with the roles that he forgets that he's an actor. Now, how God can play all the different parts, we can't really say. But we also get the feeling that all of these, everything that takes place within this play, and that means this whole world is a play, has the quality of a sport, a little bit of a play. Swami Vivekananda had different, of course they all had different moods. Sometimes he looked upon this world as something very, very serious. If people were suffering, for him it was a horrible thing. He felt that suffering on himself. Other times he would get in this high mood, and he would say, "Yes, I can see it's like two puppies. When they play with each other, they nip at each other, and they'll squeal as if it really hurts them, but it's play for them. I see this whole world is like that." So, as I say, maybe we can't, but these great souls could get into that very high state of mind where they saw everything that way. So this is really just from a certain point of view, and a certain almost ecstatic way of seeing the universe. They would have that feeling. Now, the second sense of Nara Leela goes along with this concept of the avatar, or the divine incarnation, and this is typically the sense in which it's used when we talk about meditation. Meditation or contemplation on the divine play will be when God comes in human form. Now, we just heard that God comes in human form with everybody. So what does it mean? This is also another big question. Who is this avatar that we talk about? We, again, have so many different ways of understanding this, and we don't have to get stuck in any one way of looking at it. We don't have to believe that God himself one day said, "Okay, this world's in trouble, let me come down from heaven, and let me take human form and be born, and I'll take care of everything, then I'll go back to heaven." This is the Puranic view, that God will descend. Avatar means descend. So as if coming from above and coming back down. Now, we have other ways of looking at the avatar. One is that there are certain great souls that are not born in this world because of past karma, that at the time of their passing away, they refuse to be merged in Brahman or have final liberation, but have some desire to be of benefit to the world, and they can be reborn from time to time. And they'll have companions who are similar to them, but slightly lower level, that will come together with them. Another idea of the avatar. Sri Ramakrishna explains it one time also, that the avatar is that through whom one can see the infinite reality. He says, picture a wall that's covering a vast open field, and if there's a hole in that wall, and you can look through that hole, and then you can see the infinite field in front of you, this is the avatar. So we can take it that way, that were meditating on any great soul, say in the Buddhist tradition, that they can meditate on the life and the teachings and the play, the human play of Buddha, without calling him an avatar. They won't include him in the Buddhist tradition as an avatar. They'll say that he was someone who had reached the highest state of enlightenment and represents the ideal for all of us who are also trying for enlightenment. So we shouldn't get too hung up on this idea of do we have to accept that there's a divine incarnation, Son of God. In Christianity, it's very easy to understand it. Then we get to Hindu tradition, and there'll be many of them. So the Christian tradition, they may say, how can there be many? There should only be one. We shouldn't get hung up on these ideas. That anytime we see a great soul who's born, who manifests divine qualities, who can represent an ideal for us, that can be the object or subject of our meditation. So that can also work for this Leela Dhyana. So the Christian tradition is very good with this. We'll have people that will constantly study the Bible. Whole mind will be dwelling on that human play of Jesus. We have it in the Vaishnava tradition in India, those who worship Krishna. In some traditions, the entire day is taken up with temple worship and offerings and opening the shrine and closing the shrine and waking him up and bathing him and doing all sorts of things. So the mind is fixed on, and not on any high philosophical idea, but on this play. That means when Krishna was a baby, or when Krishna was a young boy, cowherd boy, when he was playing with the gopis. So this is all part of that idea of Leela. So we see this a little bit in the life of Sri Ramakrishna himself, Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, that everything seems to be scripted, that everyone has their role to play. It's very interesting when we look at how everybody had been given their part in this divine play. That M played one of the most important roles because he recorded everything. There's one incident that we know of when Tarak later became Swami Shivananda. One day he sat before Sri Ramakrishna, started writing, taking down notes. And Sri Ramakrishna said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I thought I should record some of the things that you're saying so that other people can benefit from it." And pretty much he said, "That's not your role. I already signed it to him." Now, Sri Ramakrishna never told M that he was to do it. And we can't imagine that he really cared if anybody recorded his words. And yet, from this high point of view, he knew that they had to be recorded. And he knew that M was doing it. We get so many hints. Never once did he ask M to record his words. But every once in a while, he'll say to M, "Did you understand that point?" And M will repeat it. Every once in a while, he'll correct him a tiny bit. And every once in a while, he'll say, "Tell me what I said. What did I say yesterday?" Huh? As if testing him to make sure that he could do it. And M was the perfect person. Each one was the perfect person. He did this with so many of them that Swami Atmajnanananda, one day, he said, "Let me sit on your lap." Now, why would he say that? And then after he said, "I wanted to see how much weight you could bear." Now, because he knew that he would later become General Secretary of the Order, he would have to carry the weight of the whole order, the full responsibility for Holy Mother, so many different things like that. One day he said about Swami Brahmananda, he has the intelligence of a king, he could rule a whole country. And Swami Vivekananda said, "Yes, now we know, Raja is our king." Even though he, of course, was the most important disciple. And as soon as he came back from the West, he said, "Raja, you'll be the president of Bellarmut, and I'm turning everything over to you," and he was the least likely person to be able to run an organization because his mind was always soaring into ecstasy. He was the most similar to Sri Ramakrishna. His role actually was to be the spiritual son of Sri Ramakrishna. And yet, he was a very effective president of the order. The order grew tremendously. So many centers started because of him. So, as if everything was scripted ahead of time. We get this idea in the Gita also, this play between Sri Krishna and Arjuna. when he's trying to convince him, and then finally he says, look, it's already written in the script that you're going to do this. The argument back and forth, it's for fun. I know that you're going to end up doing it, and you have no choice in the matter. It's already been planned. So whether it's true or not, we don't know. But this is that idea that we have with regard to Leela. It has that character to it. Has anybody seen there was a Broadway show and then movie, Jesus Christ Superstar? Huh? Did anybody see that? It's fantastic because what they do, they reenact that whole divine play, and at the end of it, everybody gets on a bus, and you can see that they were all actors. They do it from the point of view of a group of actors coming together and performing a play about the life of Christ. Normally in a movie or a play, we're supposed to forget that they're actors. But here we're supposed to remember that they were actors. It gives exactly this feeling of Leela. It's a nice movie. You should. The music is fantastic. If anybody is interested in seeing it, it's a real 60s type of, or 70s, I guess, production. Yeah, it was really very interesting. Okay, now, so this will find that this type of meditation, which is a little different from yogic meditation, we're not trying to make the mind silent, we're not trying to stop vrittis, we're allowing the mind to dwell on this divine play. We will find that there are many advantages to this, and it's very helpful. And those of us who complain that the mind is restless, the mind is always running around, how can we possibly meditate? We'll find that this is a way to let the mind run around a little bit and to still feel that we're feeding the mind divine thoughts, that we're doing something very helpful in our meditation. The main elements of meditation will also be found here, but it'll be a little bit different. We know that the first thing is that we have to withdraw the mind from the senses. The pratyahara. When we sit for meditation, we should feel that we're in a different realm. We forget this outside world. We try not to hear anything. If there are outside sounds, we don't pay attention. We try to go deep within the self so that we're cut off from the senses, pratyahara. And then dharana. We try to concentrate the mind, make the mind one-pointed, ekagrata. We try to make the mind fixed on a single point so that it doesn't move from that. And when the mind strays from that, then we have a process called abhyasa yoga, practice. This abhyasa yoga, it has a very technical meaning, very, very particular meaning, that as soon as we're trying to focus the mind on the image of the chosen ideal, we're trying to repeat the mantra, and it starts to stray a little bit. So we pull it back, and we refocus. And then it strays, and we pull it back. Now the theory is that if we continually do this, it won't stray as far, and we'll be able to pull it back more quickly, and we'll be able to notice. One of the problems in meditation is that we're not even aware that the mind has gotten off track. We're not even aware because something else caught our interest. We started thinking about something that we remembered from the day before or planning for something in the future, and it captures the interest of the mind, and after a long while, perhaps we say, oh, I just wasted 10 minutes. I was supposed to be meditating. I'm thinking about all of these things. I wasn't even aware. So the abhyasa yoga, first thing is we become aware at least that we've lost the object of meditation. We try to bring it back. And the theory is like training a dog. A dog on a leash, that if you keep pulling it back, the dog will finally understand, I better not stray anymore. Problem is that it doesn't work very well. No matter how many times we pull it back, this dog of the mind doesn't seem to want to obey us. It's very difficult to do this one-pointed type of meditation. We may get a little better at it, but most of us, with some exceptions of course, will find that after a whole lifetime of meditation, we don't really think that we've made too much progress with regard to being able to keep the mind focused and fixed on a single point, because the mind doesn't like to do it. It's not the nature of the mind to do it. It's the nature of the mind to be restless. So, Sri Ramakrishna always took the attitude that if that's the nature of the mind to do it, then let's find a way to turn that into something positive. Swami Vivekananda also, he used to say, take the line of least resistance. Rather than fight against something, make it something that will be helpful to us. That's why he used to say, if we suffer from the passions, anger and envy and all of that, turn it into something spiritual. Feel angry that we're not having enough time for spiritual practice, or feel envious of somebody who is able to have holy company more than us. Turn it into something. Otherwise, if we're always fighting against something, then the tendency of the mind is to rebel. So this is one way of allowing this restless nature of the mind to become something helpful for us. There's a second problem with the mind. So this is one problem of restlessness. Second problem when we sit for meditation is the tamas comes to us. This is called laya. The mind gets bored, it gets sleepy, it gets tired. Sometimes we just absolutely fall asleep. We can sit for meditation for an hour, and most of the time we're sleeping. If we're not actually sleeping, we can get into a state where we're half sleeping. And we may think afterwards, good meditation. I sat for an hour, it felt like 5 minutes. But then we think, what were we thinking of for the whole time? We say, I don't remember. I was kind of there. I wasn't snoring, was I? No, you weren't snoring, you weren't sleeping, but yeah, so this will help us with these two very difficult problems that we have with the mind. Either it's too restless, or it is lethargic, or we get bored, we get into this state of, sometimes they say torpidity, lethargy, laya, this tamasic type of state. So what this does, this type of meditation, we're meditating not on a single point, we can say on a diamond with many facets. And if we get tired of looking at one, we can go to another and to another and another, and we find the whole time the mind is fixed on that one diamond. It's a point, but it has different aspects and elements to it, which allows the mind the two things. One, it can be a little restless, it can run around, and two, it can be very interested. We won't have to force anything. We'll find a very enjoyable type of meditation. Now, I'm going to use this can be used for anything, this type of meditation, any spiritual tradition. I'm going to stick with this Leela on Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother and all the direct disciples. And when we think of Holy Mother and Sri Ramakrishna, we have to see that they're two facets of that same diamond. They're not two separate things. And even the direct disciples, all different facets of that same diamond. So this type of meditation, when we sit for meditation, we're supposed to enter into the cave of the heart. We have different ways of understanding that. Sri Ramakrishna always said, yes, the heart is a wonderful place for meditation. That means we try to picture God dwelling within the heart center, not this physical heart, of course, but within the cavity of the heart. Sometimes we say the lotus of the heart. So we can picture a cave, we can picture the lotus. If we're meditating on Sri Ramakrishna, why not picture his room? So we try to picture Sri Ramakrishna. He'll be sitting on a small cot. Now, if we know his room, we know there's a big cot and a small cot, and we can picture all of the direct disciples sitting there with us. So we're sitting on the ground, he's on his cot, we're watching him. To our one side is Narendra, another side is Rakal, and then his M is there, other disciples are there. Holy Mother is peeping through the bamboo curtain from the Nahabad, watching the whole scene. So we can start our meditation like this. We want to enter into meditation. That entering into meditation is walking into Sri Ramakrishna's room. Now, we can let the mind wander a little bit. We can look around the room. We can notice where everything is, the pictures on the wall, where the mat is, on the northwest corner, there's a huge container of Ganges water. Just next to that is where Sri Ramakrishna worshipped Holy Mother on Shodashi Puja. We can picture that. That can be our meditation. We can picture Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, both. She's the object of his worship. He's the pujari. He's doing the worship. And then they both go into that deep state of samadhi and pass the whole night that way. We can picture all of these things. We can see Sri Ramakrishna get up. We can see him kirtan. They're all singing. They're all dancing. He gets up, he's dancing, and they go in a circle and dance around him. Did you ever try to picture that? Huh? What that must have looked like. He'll be in the center, and it happens so often. And just by himself in an ecstatic mood, and they're all dancing and encircling him, as in a kirtan. So we can try to picture these things in this type of meditation. We can see Sri Ramakrishna in the morning. He would get up every morning and clap his hands, go in front of each and every picture, repeat the different names of God. This can be part of our meditation. We can listen to Narendra sing. And every time he sang, Thakur went into samadhi. He went into samadhi. Generally, he stood up. We read that so often. He stood up. That's why he needed somebody with him, because he stood up, he could fall down. So he wanted Babu Ram. So Babu Ram, Swami Atmajnanananda. We can picture him there holding Sri Ramakrishna. So these are all different elements that we have in this type of meditation. If the mind also gets bored of this, we can see Sri Ramakrishna leaving the room, going to the Panchavati. They used to have picnics there. Panchavati wasn't simply where he did all of his spiritual practices. He liked to have these young disciples play. He liked to watch them swing. There's these huge creepers that they would grab hold of, and they could swing back and forth, like Tarzan. They would play on these creepers. They would have picnic lunches. He used to love that. He wasn't that he was always saying, now you sit and meditate. He was very happy when he would see all of that. So really, there's no limit to the different types of meditations we can have. The limit is our imagination and our memory. We can watch Ramakrishna go to the Kali temple, enter there. He used to like to go, and he would take that chamar, that yak's tail, and wave in front of the Divine Mother. So, did anybody ever try to picture that, what it would look like? It would be fantastic if we could actually be there. So we can be there in our imagination. This is the whole point, that we're really utilizing the power of imagination. And the same power of imagination, which destroys our meditation and daydreaming, now becomes our best friend. There was a wonderful disciple of Holy Mother. Many of you know about him, Swami Atmajnanananda. And he loved this idea of this type of Leela Dhyana. And he added one element to it, that we should go and see these places. And this is something that he got from M himself. Many of the monks of our order first had their acquaintance with Sri Ramakrishna through reading of the Kotamrita, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and because of that, many of them felt a great attraction and desire to meet the author M. So he was one of them. Many of them, they came to Calcutta almost specifically to meet M, almost more than to go to Bellarmine. That would be the first thing. So he did that. He met M. Now M, Mahendranath Gupta, he would almost always ask, have you been to Dakshineshwar? Not Bellarmine. Although he said you have to go to Bellarmine, you have to go meet the monks. That was very important for him also. But he would say, have you been to Dakshineshwar? And if they said no, sometimes he would say, let's go. And they would go together. When he got older, he would say, you go there and then come back and tell me about your visit. Tell me everything you saw. And he'd say, don't go as a tourist. Don't go, even don't go and just sit and close your eyes and meditate. Go into his room, look in every corner, so that when you close your eyes, you can remember what the room looks like. Try to remember what happened in all of these different places, so that when you think of that place, you'll have that association. Go to the Panchavati, go to the Bell Tree, go to the Kali Temple, all of that, and etch very deeply into your mind the images of all these places, so when you sit for meditation, they'll come back to you. And this is how he wrote the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, because when he went there, he did that. He didn't just listen to the words of Sri Ramakrishna, so that later when he came back and sat for meditation, the scene would come back to his mind. He didn't write anything down the same day other than some very cryptic notes that only he understood. And later, after Sri Ramakrishna passed away, he went back and read those notes and would close his eyes, and the scene would come back into his mind, because that was the type of mind he had, and when he was there, he was very particular to remember everything. So he knew who else was in the room. He remembered even Ganges is flowing north or flowing south. That full moon, new moon, he remembered everything. And that allows us, when we read it, to feel that we're there also. So M was the first one that I know of, or one of those who emphasized this idea. So that Swami Atmajnanananda did also. And he had an ingenious way of expressing himself. He was not only a great God-realized soul, but very poetic. There's a beautiful volume of his letters, because he was a great letter writer. And whoever got his letters was so happy that they would share it with everyone, and no one got rid of his letters. They all saved them. And it was reproduced and first in Bengali and now the English translation, and go forward. It's very nice. And one very interesting letter he writes that I just heard about a new game that people are playing called table tennis. He says, it sounds very interesting. They hit a ball on one side and it goes to the other side. He says, why not try to picture yourself playing table tennis with Sri Ramakrishna? Huh? Now look at the genius of his imagination. Huh? He said, you'll get great pleasure. Just stop and think. Try to picture yourself playing with Sri Ramakrishna, how he would react, how he would do this and that and everything. So this is the idea of meditation on the divine sport. There's no limit to it. There's no limit to our imagination, so there's no limit to this. So these are the special advantages. As I say, the imagination gets us into trouble. Here it becomes something very helpful. The very same faculty which makes the mind wander and is our greatest enemy becomes our greatest friend. Now, in yogic meditation, our greatest friend is a controlled mind. This is a type of control. But within a circle, not a point. That's the thing. It gives us some room to wander within this same topic. So the imagination, Swami Turiyananda used to say, today's imagination is tomorrow's realization. This becomes the greatest aid to realization. And it actually negates the tendency of the mind to stray from the object of meditation, because now we have room to wander within. So it's not as focused, if we really want to be technical, on a very single point, but the problem is with that single point meditation, we can lose it too easily. I have it someplace, is it here? That idea that of one-pointed meditation, that Sri Krishna was talking to Arjuna, and they were having some contest where they're trying to shoot birds out of the sky. Huh? They were all hunters in those days, and archers, and of course warriors. And Arjuna was known for his concentration. So Sri Krishna says to him, now tell me, what do you see? Do you see the trees? He said, no. Do you see all the kings, all the people sitting here? No. Do you see the bird? He said, no, I don't see the bird. He said, what do you see? I see the eye of the bird. So Sri Ramakrishna is saying that this is that one-pointedness that ideally we would like to have. Now the problem is that if we lose the eye of the bird, we very often lose the bird also. and then the mind just wanders. So this is a way of allowing us to, we don't have to have that perfect concentration on that one single point. And if we try and we lose it, then we're still staying within that circle. You know, the example of the cow that is tethered to a post. The length of the rope will determine the grazing area. So we're allowing the mind to graze. The mind is grazing within the area, but preventing it from going outside of that area. So, this is the use of the imagination. The second advantage is that this feeling of boredom will absolutely leave us. That this will be such an enjoyable type of meditation that we will be anxious. We will say, oh, whoa, when can I do it again? Just as when all the disciples left Sri Ramakrishna, first thought in their mind was, well, when can I go back and see him again? They all used to say that. The one thought in our minds was, when can we go back? The second that they left, they would count the minutes till they could go back there again. We can look at our meditation as that time sitting with Sri Ramakrishna. When the meditation ends, well, we have to go home. Then we'll spend the whole day thinking, oh, when can I go back? So this is another thing, this carryover. This is very important, that we finish this type of meditation, and that feeling that we just spent however long, 20 minutes, half hour, that we just spent that time in the company of Sri Ramakrishna or Holy Mother, that it feels very real to us. And we think, when can we go back again? Sri Ramakrishna made a very interesting statement, which I think is very helpful to Keshav Sen and the Brahmos. You know, they didn't like this Vaishnava stuff, this Radha Krishna episode. And he said, okay, I know that you don't really care for that, you don't really believe in these things, but try to appreciate that longing that Radha had to see Krishna. And when she was in his company, the joy that she had, and when she was not in his company, how she was thinking about him day and night. Try to appreciate it, try to emulate that, whether it's real or not, whether it's made up, it doesn't matter. Let that be an ideal. Try to follow that type of ideal. So we find that there are also different fruits of this type of meditation. One, this joy that comes. There's nothing dry about this type of meditation. We can feel a little bit the way they felt, the disciples, when they actually went and sat with Sri Ramakrishna. We can feel that our relationship with our chosen ideal is also something real. That we also can place ourselves, if we're sitting with the direct disciples, we can feel we're also his disciple. Anyone who takes initiation with any of the monks of the order, they're also a disciple. All of the swamis of the order feel that they're just a conduit, that Sri Ramakrishna is a real guru. So we're also sitting with our guru there, that we belong to him. And this is a very interesting thing from a philosophical point of view, that the divine play that we're observing in our meditation is taking place within consciousness. And it's not simply a mental exercise. We have this idea, Chinmoy Dham, Chinmoy Sham. Sri Ramakrishna uses this expression, that the abode of the Lord is pure consciousness, and the Lord himself is pure consciousness. So we're not simply in the mental realm, we're in the spiritual realm. We're in that divine realm of pure consciousness. And Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, direct disciples, everyone in the room, that they're also embodiments of consciousness. We ourselves are sitting in the room, we ourselves also are pure spirit. So when we finish this type of meditation, this strong identification we have with this physical body becomes less and less. And so it's very helpful for us to disidentify with this physical body, because we become so identified with that spirit body that's sitting in the room with Sri Ramakrishna. So a very important benefit that we get from all of this. Then, we hear very often that one of the great fruits of meditation is transformation. that we take on the qualities of that upon which we meditate. So if we're meditating on a very personal aspect of God, and that aspect of God includes, which it does in the case of Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, there's tremendous love, there's tremendous compassion, there's tremendous ecstasy. In the case of Holy Mother, they had great forbearance. All of these qualities, if they become part of our meditation, then they infuse our own nature. We start to take on these things. There's a transformation, there's a transference even that takes place in this type of meditation. If we're simply meditating and picturing an image, we're trying to picture an image, and we're not even thinking of this is not just an image, we're talking about a human being, God in human form who dwelled and had these divine characteristics, then our appreciation, our love for these qualities means that we also would like to have them. So this is a very important thing. This process of transformation takes place. And as I say, this carryover effect is very important. This carryover effect brings us to this last element, and that is this contemplation. So that when we're not actually sitting for meditation, that the rest of the day we're remembering. We're either remembering what actually took place, or we're remembering our own meditation. We can think, this morning I was sitting with Sri Ramakrishna. And we can do it, we can read from the gospel, we can read something and try to picture that incident, or anything, whatever comes to our mind. So this will infuse the rest of our day, so that part of the mind will always be dwelling in Dakshineshwar during those years, 1881 to 1885, so that part of the mind is living in the past, and part of the mind is living in a far distant place. And we get the feeling that it's real and that it exists. There's another nice idea that we find in the Vaishnava tradition, that this play of Krishna and the gopis is eternally going on. There's something called an eternal Vrindavan, Nitya Vrindavan. We can also feel this Nitya Dakshineshwar, that this play is going on eternally, and that we have the great privilege to participate in that play. Now, to me, and this is something I mentioned with the M recommended, everyone should go to visit these places, Dakshineshwar, Bellarmat, and Jardambati and Kamarpukur, the birthplace of Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, and Dakshineshwar, so that it becomes real to us. I went to Dakshineshwar and I went to Sri Ramakrishna's room before I really started reading the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. So when I read it, I knew when it says he's sitting facing north, I could picture it. When it says that who was sitting in front of him and where the pictures were, this and that, I could picture all of it. It's very, very helpful. Very helpful that we do that. So some people do it whenever, and all of us really who go, whenever we go to Calcutta or Bellarmat, we make sure that we go to Dakshineshwar. So this is one thing, pilgrimage. Second thing to me is very important, is a spiritual practice of reading this Kathamrita, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, as part of our everyday spiritual practice, everyday reading some of it. I got so attached to reading the Gospel when I first started. The first time I read it through, I was a little confused. I was thinking, M is writing that this devotee is thinking this. How does he know what the devotee is thinking? Then I understood he's referring to himself. Yeah. So then I thought, okay, I'll read it again. Then the more I read it, it became an obsession. I would read for hours on end. I would go through it so fast. I started with the small one, and then I switched to the big one. I went through it over and over and over again, so that every night, that would be, I do my meditation. I was living alone at that time. My meditation, and then I would read. And then I found that when I would sit for meditation, I would feel as if I were in his room. And it would almost feel like there was some physical transformation of my room. Now remember, the dumpy little apartment in West Philadelphia. Couldn't be further from Dakshineshwar. And yet, I would feel that I was actually sitting in his room, that my room, as soon as the sun went down, that my room would transform itself into Sri Ramakrishna's room. Because I spent so much time reading the Gospel, I continue, I try not to miss a single day. Now, here, we read in the morning, every morning, and I read every night. Not for so long, anything, but it's a tremendous help. This is our greatest type of holy company, because it's hard to get the actual holy company all of the time. These great, highly spiritual souls are not so easy to come across. This is also a tremendous type of holy company just through reading. Okay, so let me just kind of sum up a little bit. I want to mention a book and a person, because we were talking about him this morning, and this is Baba Ramdas, who passed away recently. You all know him. He was a colleague of Timothy O'Leary at Harvard, and they did all the experiments with LSD and mind expansion and everything, and then he became a disciple of Neem Karoli Baba. He went to India and then transformed himself into Baba Ramdas, and was a very, very influential spiritual teacher in this country. And he wrote a book called Be Here Now. And I read it when it first came out. I think it was 1971. And many of my friends read it. It was a fantastic book. And it was all about this idea, live in the present. Don't let the mind wander, don't daydream. It's a very wonderful book. Be Here Now, very wonderful teaching. Now I'm mentioning this because this is a type of teaching that is very helpful for a certain type of devotee and a certain type of meditation. The motto for those who follow this Leela Dhyana will be there then. Not be here now. Be there then. Let the mind dwell there in Dakshineshwar. Then, in 1881, 82, 83, 84, 85. Don't be afraid to live in the past. We're always said, don't live in the past. The devotee can live in the past. So that the mind is always, part of the mind is always there. Where do we live? On one level, we live where the physical body is. The other meaning is wherever the mind is, that's where we live. This Gita, chapter 12, is a beautiful verse where Krishna says to Arjuna, if you can keep your mind fixed on me, let your intellect, let it dwell within me, then you'll live in me. So where do we live? Where the mind is, that's where we live. So there's no harm if we convert that be here now into be there then. And then we'll find that it's a very beautiful type of meditation. It may not be for everybody, but I think many of us will find it helpful. And very funny thing is that it can lead to the other type of meditation. So, for example, Sri Ramakrishna up singing, dancing, and everything, we say, okay, enough. You go sit down on your cot and go into samadhi, and I'll simply watch you. You'll be in samadhi, and then we find that we're doing exactly what we were supposed to do in the first place. So this is that idea of Leela Dhyana, meditation and contemplation on the divine sport of God. And I think for many of us, it doesn't have to be our main type of meditation, but it adds a very beautiful and helpful dimension to our meditation. So let us stop here, and we can sit quietly for a few minutes.